Welcome back to the SaaS Jobs podcast. I'm your host, Will Steward. Today we're talking about one of the most misunderstood areas in early stage SaaS, hiring engineering and AI talent. Many founders know they need AI, but very few understand how to hire for it, how to define the roles, or how to compete for great talent. To help us unpack all of this, I'm joined by Jay Odeka, Director at Wunder Talent. Jay works with SaaS and AI startups to hire GTM, engineering, and AI talent fast, and has lots of hands-on experience fixing broken hiring processes and filling hard technical roles. Jay, welcome to the show. Yeah, great to have you here. So let's set the stage. From your perspective, what makes hiring AI talent fundamentally different from hiring traditional engineering roles?
So from my experience, I think that then there's normally like a conflation of what people truly mean. So hiring AI talent, you could look at it from the point of view of like you're making stuff you're building with AI, not necessarily building AI. So when you're hiring engineering talent, a lot of tech companies, they're working with like AI engineers, machine learning engineers. It's not necessarily the same as the technologies that you experience when you're building AI, like data research scientists. So a big difference is that when you're looking to hire for engineering talent, the technical skill set, I guess, that we're looking into is subtly different. Hiring people who understand how to build in like machine learning, natural language processing is fundamentally different from, engineers that will build software which then utilizes AI characteristics. So you will see companies that will post for AI engineers when really what they want is an engineer who's excited about AI and can ship features that use AI technology. So the other difference, I guess, is where the talent is. So engineering talent is atypically everywhere. You can see it. It's a lot more, I guess it's a lot more reach outable. Whereas with AI talent, you'll see them working at like some of the Shopifys, the Stripes, some of the biggest companies in the world. So, the difficulty is trying to identify what constitutes AI talent versus what constitutes talent that can work in an AI environment. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you just got someone that's going to implement some open AI stuff for you, then you don't need someone that's got a PhD in machine learning.
Absolutely. And naturally as well, those people won't be super interested in that solution that you're offering because it's not deep inside the technology. It's kind of more superficial. So somebody who's worked in that space for a while might be looking for something a little bit more complex.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this kind of feeds into my next question, which is a lot of founders mix up terms like ML engineer, AI engineer, and data scientist. How should early stage teams think about these roles at a high level?
Well, I always think that for early stage, you're normally looking at like the technology, substance versus form. So we're looking at what it is that the person is doing versus the job title that you're carrying them under. So I always want to say to founders, are you trying to build models or are you trying to build a product that uses AI? So if it's the second one, a product that uses AI, it's normally for a SaaS or a technology platform. So then you're needing somebody who's good with Python, someone who's good with APIs, somebody who knows async systems, someone who's shipped AI features. You don't necessarily need like a machine learning engineer there. Do you see what I mean? So normally I'd advise companies who are building these kind of technologies in the startup space, it's normally someone who's good with Python, good API knowledge, someone who's built a scalable system, maybe has an appreciation of RAG or similar to that, and is very interested in AI or has maybe worked on some sort of AI agent in the past. That would be normally, for me, the standard level. for a non-focused AI company, a non-company which is just literally operating in the machine learning, natural language processing space, that's probably whereabouts I would fit most companies who are looking to recruit in that type of skill set.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when a founder says we need someone who can build AI into our product, what questions should they actually be asking themselves first?
This question isn't really as much about AI, and it's more about what a customer is trying to do. What when I'm doing this recruitment with our clients, I'm asking, are you building an AI feature in a SaaS product, or are you building an AI product from scratch? Because they're very different hires. So that's the first thing they need to be asking is, are you actually trying to build an AI product from scratch? And as such, does this prospective hire understand? Yeah. Or when a founder's looking at the product that they're essentially going to go out to the market with when you're trying to hire candidates, and you need to understand, okay, am I looking for someone who understands our ecosystem? So if we're building AI for like property, I've done a lot of property recruitment, a lot of companies building AI agents that operate in the property space. So having somebody that's worked in that space before is very beneficial. So asking whether or not ecosystem specific experience is necessary is a really important one. And I also think that sometimes a big question that they should be asking themselves is, are you trying to build for now or in the future? Because sometimes I've seen founders who can spend time looking for a perfect candidate, but what they need at that stage of their evolution is just a strong Python engineer from their ecosystem who could learn certain skills in a few weeks. Understanding the specific problems that your customer has is more difficult, I believe, than understanding how to do certain types of AI tooling.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you work with a lot of early stage SaaS founders. I guess, what are the biggest hiring mistakes you consistently see when it comes to technical roles?
Unicorn hiring, especially in startups. So when you're a startup, you might have somebody who wears a lot of different hats when you're growing, and when that person leaves, you have quite a multi-tooled employee who may or may not be, it's basically it's an amalgamation of lots of different areas which may or may not be a normally put together skill set. Do you see what I mean? So
Yep.
that can be quite unique to try and hire. Just trying to find that one person who does everything, especially when you're trying to save money and you're trying to just, it ends up having, someone that points in multiple directions, which I see can be very difficult for that prospective candidate. And it can be difficult to judge their ability and the quality that they've done. There's a lot of interviewing that doesn't actually have tangible loop backs to your day-to-day activity. So I had a client that was hiring for like AI systems, and they were doing like whiteboards and everything like that. The candidates that went through the process, two of them weren't right, and one of them didn't like the interview. So we ended up losing 3 candidates because 2 of the interview processes wasn't actually the job that they'd be doing on a day-to-day basis. So we were no closer to whether or not they would be good at this specific job. And then obviously, in terms of what else is there? Tunnel vision type stuff. So founders can want to find somebody who's used the exact tech stack that they're using right now, rather than somebody who might have really good ability to scale their skill set or do problem solving Like, so a very, very good engineer who's used a certain framework but hasn't used your framework could maybe figure it out quickly. But
Yep.
somebody who's not technical is always going to be not technical,
Yeah.
regardless of the fact that they're experienced in your stack. So a couple of those points there.
Yeah. I guess, how often do you come across job descriptions that are completely disconnected from the actual problem the business is trying to solve?
I think the I think with that question is it's one of those things where the way I would answer it is it's idealistic sometimes rather than realistic, but then sometimes it's a lot of the time it's in good faith. So I'll do an interview with somebody or I'll speak to a hiring manager, and before they go into the process of recruiting, they think they need X and Y. But once we've spoken to a couple of candidates, they actually need A, B, C. So they're then in a situation where it's like, okay, now the job spec is moving. And that can be tricky from a recruiter because, you've invested time and effort into the process. You've invested time and effort into kind of like where you're at the moment. So a lot of the time, if you see I need a data scientist who can do full stack development, talk to customers, sell the product. Like, okay, and it's like 60K.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's cool.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm like, it's cool. I hear it, but it's just like, for me, I'm just like, that person, if they do exist, they're at like Meta or Stripe or Google, and they're earning maybe 3 times what we've just said there. So, the thing is that I feel less so is that people are asking for impossible things, and more they're asking for things that are unrealistic based on the state of the market, but they need to be educated a little bit as to why that is.
Yeah. So what would you say a founder typically underestimates when they're hiring for AI-related roles for the first time?
Mainly the crossover, as in like a lot of founders will think their product is more AI in the first instance than it actually is. So they'll be recruiting for 2 years down the line rather than right now. That's the biggest one for me, really. And then the technical skill set is really important in terms of just appreciating what you need from like machine learning versus AI versus Python engineers versus just full stack engineers. There's like maybe 3 or 4 different, ranks, cabs on the taxi rank that you could jump into, but it's just having the clarity to understand where you're at what stage, and the value you need to be brought from your prospective hire or people who are developing your product.
Yeah. Yeah, so many founders have never hired an AI role before. If you're advising them, what should they be looking for in a genuinely strong AI or ML engineer?
Okay. I would probably say, like understanding what good is, like let's see what good looks like. Like, so, from my point of view, I made a note of this before. So I was like, you can have like certain green flags that are going to separate good candidates from bad candidates. So a good candidate can take you through an AI feature that they built, and it's not a research project, it's tangible. It's a tangible real world product. So like they know that not everything's meant to be AI. The good candidates and prospective strong machine learning engineers don't actually use AI for everything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're using a lot of just traditional engineering processes and flows, and they'll use AI and LLM in the best case scenarios, in the ideal way to maximize the platform. So, in terms of what the AI benefits the organization is kind of how they speak a little bit. So, a developer could say, hey, we've achieved 90% accuracy. Whereas somebody who's worked in that role and understands material impacts might turn around and be like, we reduced tickets by 40%. We cut response time down from 2 hours. So they talk about the impact that the AI or the engineering solutions that they've developed will have on the business. So that shows a commercial understanding, which is what probably some of the better developers, better engineers understand about how to position themselves. And might sound quite basic, but they're kind of doing GitHubs, they're making contributions, they're current, they're posting stuff, they're going to meetups. It's not a deal breaker for me, but it's always nice to see somebody that's being proactive.
Yeah. So would you say it's more important that AI candidates have shipped real products than having lots of research or academic credentials?
Yeah, I mean, depends on the stage of the organization. So for me, like if you're early stage, then I would need you to have shipped. So like if you've got the research or you've got the academics or the PhDs and stuff like that, because like academics I guess you're working towards perfection in academics in as much as possible. Whereas startups, it's speed, usability, scalability. You can make the argument that these are opposite ends of the spectrum. So, you can have really good, research PhD candidates who are used to spending, they could have spent 18 hours a day working on this for 6 months. You won't get the luxury of that time in a startup, or you won't get the luxury of the time in the commercial environment. But essentially, if you can find somebody that's got that research experience, who's also delivered product, or, coded things that have commercial use, from my point of view, that's really, really beneficial. And that's kind of maybe the best of both worlds. But the best candidates I've seen, they've shipped, they've got pre-existing experience, they've done the job before. So that it's not a gamble, as it were. So commercial experience, having real world, not projects, but real world, jobs or opportunities that they've worked on over the last kind of year plus, I think is where I'd lean personally based off experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you interview candidates for technical roles, what signals help you understand whether that person will thrive in a fast-moving startup?
So startup experience is probably the best signal, to be fair. I'm a big fan of pre-existing experience. So, the risk factor is lowered when you give somebody something that they've done previously. So, previous startup experience is great. Early employees. Do you know what I mean? So like if you're an early employee in a startup or something like that, then you have to just fix stuff that's broken all the time. That's important. I like entrepreneurial mindset. I think that's really quite common in terms of what we might look for in those processes. And I think if you look at people who have like maybe even yourself, so I think we've tried to record this a couple of times and it's been a bit tricky sometimes to get the stuff in the diary. But you've never chewed me out for it or kicked my ass over it, which I appreciate. But the concept around it is similar to ambiguity. When things move, when things don't happen exactly how they're meant to happen, how do you deal with that? How does that affect your demeanor? How do you move forward? I think that's quite important because things go wrong in startups all the time, and you don't necessarily have the pre-existing infrastructure that a more established company will have. So, you gotta proverbially be like, some days you're the pigeon, some days you're the statue. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so if you were designing a hiring process specifically for AI or engineering roles in 2026, what would the ideal process look like?
Okay, an ideal process. Oh, good one. Okay, so my process probably would start with so the job brief. So when you got the job brief, you got to set the job brief. Like good call with the hiring manager, 30 minutes to an hour. Just get a good understanding of what we're looking for here. Just get a really strong understanding of everything that that's going to be important. Then I'm looking at a scorecard. For me, the next thing I normally do is I like to make a scorecard so I know what I'm judging of. So you can judge without emotion. Get yourself a little scorecard and get an understanding of what it is that we're looking for, what makes a good candidate. Now we're going to have a uniform way of going through everybody. Then I'm going to have a telephone screen, get a feel for the candidate, see how they come across. Maybe sometimes video, depending on how many stages the client's got. But the next stage will be that. In terms of a technical task here, so there's going to be either a technical screen or a technical task at this point. So I like 1 hour technical task, maybe whiteboards, maybe, having a high level technical conversation, maybe something short to take home. I'm not a huge fan of asking the candidate to do lots and lots and lots and lots of work. However, on the other side, I appreciate that companies really, they want to be certain about the people that they're hiring. So, the take-home projects will depend on the technical screen. So I think there should be 2 screens, one initial technical conversation just to go through stuff, and then the technical piece where you're going to identify whether this person's good or not. So that's either going to be a take-home project or a long-form interview. Project shouldn't be more than 4 or 5 hours. If it's take-home, long-form interview, maybe an hour and a half. I like it to be something relevant to what they're going to be doing. So, there's that. And then you start getting into the nuance of, okay, how good was the technical task? Have you seen everything that you need to see? Then it's about high-level conversations. Depending on the size of the organization, you're probably going to get 1 of those, maybe 2. You want to be fitting into like production thinking, business impact, culture fit. Across these interviews, that's what you're going to be doing. So at this point, then I normally would ask for references prior to making an offer. So I guess a streamlined version is taking the job brief from the hiring manager, creating a scorecard, initial phone screen, technical screen, depending on how much depth there is. There might be another one or a take-home task, then meeting more senior people. So with that, in a startup, I'd expect some of these stages to be folded together. So it'll be about 3 stages. In a more established company, and it could take up to 6.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess, so where do you think that early stage teams tend to lose great candidates during their process?
Too many interview rounds, like I just said, 3 versus 6 just then. You like if you're the one who's doing 6, then I'm not sure whether or not you're going to be able to beat out the ones who are doing 3 if they've got great culture, great remuneration, and nice co-workers. So too many interview rounds, slow comms, ghosting. I always say time kills deals. So yeah, it's always been the methodology. Like whether you work in any sort of SaaS or tech sales, or if you're in hiring, time kills deals. Appreciate it. People have got other things to do. Working in like career coaching and recruitment, people always have other things to do. So I guess it's about understanding the importance of what you're trying to do before it becomes so critically important. You're wondering how you got there, right?
Yeah.
Salaries, you got to be really clear on the salary in the top end. It can be really difficult when a client's like, okay, just go off what the market's telling us. The market will tell us what's going on. That's really tricky. But aside from that, I would also look at maybe the experience, the interview experience. The process is disorganized, turnaround times, things like that. So I always think that, you're already going to be competing on salary and everything like that. So you might as well make sure you can win where you can pick up like low hanging fruit, easy wins, smooth interview process, nice communication, nice and clear on salary, nice formulaic interview experience,
Yeah. Yeah, I think all those things matter a lot these days. It's So for a founder who wants to speed up hiring without compromising on the quality of the hires, what are the first changes they should make to their process?
So, I mean, if I was going to say, I would probably say, if I was going to say why they lose good candidates and things like that, I guess my thing is almost like, I have no issue with a company understanding what it is that they need to be able to offer a candidate. Do you see what I mean? So like, you need to have the process you need for your company to be able to work out whether this is a good or bad candidate. So I think that the key thing is to have empathy for the person who's going through the recruitment process is the most important thing in relation to that, because it'd be very easy for me to turn around and say, well, just do it this way. But not every company it's not a uniform process. We've got best practice, like we've kind of been through with just before. But in terms of this, I would be like, you need to understand your strength and bargaining position in the market and act accordingly. So if you're a small startup, don't have 6 stages because you can't justify it in the market. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not to say that you can't have a thorough process to make sure you know exactly what you're looking for, but it's just a case of you just got to understand, everyone thinks they've got the prettiest wife at home, Every company thinks they've got the best culture or the best salary or the best this. You got to have an understanding or an accurate perception of what your reality is, and then I think you need to just adjust your process accordingly. Use the feedback from the process. If you're losing candidates at the end, they're going through the process. It means that they're happy enough with the process, but there's something happening at the end. Are we not competitive in salary? Is there something that's going on in the final interview that's making them feel a little bit a certain kind of way? I'd say that you have to just refine your process based on auditing it after a period of time. So it can be a number of things. I wouldn't want to just, speculate too much and then, say this is the uniform way to do it, because like I say, best practice is one thing, but everybody's best practice can be a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. So many founders assume they can't really compete with big tech companies for AI talent. In your experience, what actually attracts senior AI engineers away from those companies to early stage SaaS?
I guess looking at, a lot of people like, greenfield, brownfield projects, working on architecture from the beginning, from scratch and things like that. Ownership, equity, they love that. Like impact is a big thing. Yeah, I think it's about positioning. You want to position opportunities in the right way. So if you're looking at certain opportunities, like if I'm going to a startup, then I'm going to want to know that I can potentially architect the whole system. I can make key decisions. I can have a high level of ownership and responsibility. Now, if I'm going to Google, I know I might not get that. But if I'm going to go to your startup and I can get that, it can be a competitive advantage, right?
Yep.
Equity, if you're in a good position and you get 1% equity, it's like a seed round. You know, the company's going to go through a few more years, Series A, maybe a Series B. That 1% could be worth a lot of money in the future. So the equity upside is big. And, you know, if you're customer facing and you're entrepreneurial, you love a startup, you know, it's the ability to work and see real feedback. It's just about positioning what you've got. So if I get a good candidate and he's going for a big tech company and he's going for a startup, you're selling at completely different ends of the spectrum. So if you're selling at startup, all of the competitive advantages you have of being in a startup are the opposite of being in a big AI or tech company. So you got to really work on your advantages. And you've got to really position yourself in a way where, you know, you can't be everything to everyone. So just try and make sure that you are, you know, you look good for the candidates that you're trying to attract, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know in the past you've talked a lot about ecosystem talent. What does that mean in practice, and why does hiring from within your vertical give early stage startups an edge?
Because essentially it's something that you're not offering something based off salary, or it's not a financial benefit. It's a free benefit that you have straight away. And ecosystem can work across multiple different areas. So a good example is if I'm selling, you know, SaaS AI products in the fintech space, then me bringing you profiles of people that sold SaaS AI products in the fintech space, it means that essentially you have a proven track record of this person can deliver what we're asking them to do. Now, if I bring you somebody that sold SaaS AI, but not necessarily into the fintech space, immediately you could say, I know they could do the job. We have no experience or previous track record of them doing the job. So automatically your risk profile has increased in terms of hiring this one person versus the other. To reiterate, it doesn't mean that that person can't do the job. It just means they don't have a track record of doing the job. So therefore, ecosystem in this context can refer to SaaS AI. It could refer to the stakeholder. So if I have a marketing AI solution, I'm selling into the chief marketing officer. So if you have sold into chief marketing officers, you could have sold HubSpot, for example. You might have worked at HubSpot. So now I go to the person that worked at HubSpot and I say, hey, listen, I have this AI SaaS product selling into CMOs. Well, immediately I know that this person has a proven track record of selling into CMOs. Now you get another candidate. He's not sold into CMOs. Great CV. Once again, risk factors increased. Can they do the job? Probably. Do we have a track record of them being able to do the job? Not so much. So for me, that's what we specialize in Wunder Talent is ecosystem specialists. We want to bring companies the best talent of their ecosystem so they can grow and expand with minimal risk, with candidates that have a proven track record of achieving what they want them to achieve.
Yeah, I guess it makes a big difference to time to value with making the hire as well.
100%. Because obviously a company, if I can show you this candidate's coming from your competitor with a proven track record in what you're trying to achieve, I don't see why you wouldn't use that as the number one option for the role, all things considered.
Yeah, definitely. So if a founder's making their very first AI hire, where should they start? So who is the right first hire in most early stage contexts? So
in terms of, I guess, the right first stage hire, it will depend on where they're at. So I would probably look at a senior individual contributor is probably the sweet spot straight away. So it does depend on your stage. So whether you're pre-product or post-product, are we looking for someone to build this from scratch, or have we built the product from scratch? But like if you're pre-products, then a senior AI engineer who can build and also like set the technical direction, someone who's been in the first 10 employees in a startup before, who'll be writing code most of the time, but then can maybe think logically and strategically about architecture, would be great. If you hire a VP who wants to manage, you have, too many chiefs and not enough Indians. You haven't got enough people to actually deliver. So if you have got products and traction and stuff like that, then you might want maybe like a founding engineer, someone who can manage the roadmap, but isn't completely away from code. So like maybe like somebody who can do maybe like a software architect or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Someone who can do the big picture stuff, but is still very hands-on.
Yeah.
So I would probably say 3 or 4 points would be like built and shipped products before, somebody who can maybe know when not to use AI, maybe can mentor junior engineers. Obviously, someone who's not afraid for everything to fall apart and, not be in the fetus position in the corner, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I guess when would you say it makes sense to bring in more specialised roles?
Research, like in terms of like, once you get to a certain point when the person who is managing whatever feature or whatever you're doing is no longer an expert. So once you you can have somebody who builds the product. You could have a founder and a CTO or a VP of engineering, and they build the product. But then that product then will need product owners, product managers, things like that to help the product be refined for the ideal profile. Now, that's something that the founder doesn't necessarily have experience doing. So now we're at a point where that person is learning on the job. That's suboptimal. So that's when you need to start thinking about having people who have a track record, going back to the previous point, of doing what we're looking for this person to do. And that's when you start putting the correct bums in seats.
Yeah. I guess that ties well into the next question, which is what mistakes do founders make when sequencing AI or engineering roles too early or too late?
So, too early is like you're hiring team leads and VPs before you need them. That's a big thing sometimes. Almost 90% of the time, when I'm looking at like they want to, I need a VP of this, you don't really, you need a senior something. Like even like marketing managers in AI companies, it's like you don't need a VP of marketing. You need a senior marketing manager who has the potential for their role to evolve, or even bring somebody in 18 months above them who can then build out the division. Do you see what I mean? So when you hire leadership before you need it, that VP is not hands-on. So that's an issue. So you get people who are leaders when you have a team to lead. Do you know what I mean? If you have 3 or 4 engineers, 5 engineers, okay, you need a leader, but until you have those 5 engineers, why do you need a VP of engineering? You don't.
Exactly. Yep.
I would say that you have a look at people that take a little bit too long in terms of the senior hires as well. So there's a gap, quality gap. So you have a lot of junior to mid engineers, but you nearly need mid to senior engineers. And that's a bit like because you haven't hired those roles before, you get a little bit like, we can just get away with this. And eventually that becomes a thing. And then a lot of the time is sometimes people will they like a good CV versus the person. Like people hiring off paper credentials and not realism. So yeah, I'd probably say get some senior individual contributors, get some senior mid-level engineers, get an engineering manager once you've built that out, and then get a VP of engineering once you built that out. Same process for any other sector. So you can maybe like senior marketing manager, get some other, mid to senior marketing managers, get a head of marketing, VP of marketing once you hit a certain point, and then a CMO once you have multiple teams. Principle is pretty consistent across the board.
Yeah. Right, so moving on to a few rapid fire questions just to tie things up.
Sure.
What do you think the most overrated AI job title is right now?
Prompt engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah, prompt engineer. Because the thing is like, if you're a prompt engineer, why should somebody that works with AI, why should they not be good at prompting?
Exactly.
Like, why would I need to hire a prompt engineer? And I just think that like a smart company would just be like, my employees should be upwardly mobile on this.
Yeah. Yeah, the most underrated technical role in early stage SaaS.
Absolutely, solutions engineers. Like it's probably, in fact, I'm trying to start something called the Solutions Engine. It's a group for pre-sales and implementation. Solutions Engineer, 100%, because the AI and SaaS solutions, they need to be implemented. The technical implementation, client-facing, people who aren't developers but can manipulate APIs, JSON. So, pre-sales side, helping you generate more deals, someone who can demo, someone who can close deals, someone who can do the technical implementation, who is not a developer but has that client-facing aspect of a salesperson. It's worth a lot of money.
Yeah. The biggest red flag in an AI candidate?
When AI has overly written their CV and they can't explain their work very simply.
Yeah, makes sense. What about the biggest red flag in a founder hiring AI talent?
They realize that their product is a nice to have rather than solving an actual need. So it's difficult for them to express what problem the AI solves because it gets a little bit wishy-washy. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, this product is going to do this and do that and do this and do that. But what problem is it actually solving?
Yeah. The fastest way to lose a top AI candidate?
Slow feedback, slow turnaround time, slow booking in interviews.
Yep. And finally, what's one change a founder can make today to improve the hiring instantly?
Scorecard. Just make sure you have when you write your job spec, then immediately translate it into a scorecard, tally chart system, score it out 50, 60. Just use that every time. Keeps it very uniform, homogeneous recruitment process, and it will ensure that you constantly have the most important aspects of the role in the forefront of your mind.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jay. This has been brilliant. So hiring AI and engineering talent is one of the biggest challenges founders face right now, and I think you've given people a much clearer picture of how to do it well. For anyone listening who wants to connect with you or learn more about Wunder Talent, where can they find you?
Yeah, of course, thank you. So with Wunder Talent, we help SaaS and AI companies hire go-to-market engineering people from their ecosystem, like we covered in this, and so we've been working around for like 10 years. So you can find us on LinkedIn, wundertalent.co.uk. Work across a couple of different areas. We do contract, permanent. We can do contingent, zero risk. So we do have 100% money back guarantee if the hire doesn't perform. So if you'd love to connect with us, it's Wunder Talent, WUNDER Talent. Find us on LinkedIn, or my name's Jay Odeka. You can also find me through my career coaching maxing service, which is called Outerview, which is, helping a lot of candidates, maximize their career, generate more job opportunities, and increase their salaries too. So appreciate your time, Will.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.